Time for our weekly chat with a Hall of Famer, McCann Award winner, one of the greatest NFL insiders in the history of pro football. John Clayton back with us. Braddock Zone brought to you by your local Nissan dealers. John, headline in the Post-Gazette this afternoon. Jerry Dulac, is Ben Roethlisberger being hamstrung by Matt Canada's game plan? Criticism of the Steelers' first-year offensive coordinator. What do you make of that situation, John? I mean, could the Steelers actually pull the plug on an offensive coordinator after just 1 year?
After 1 year, yeah, I can see that, but I still think it's more the offensive line. I mean, the one thing is that just like last year, all he's doing is throwing short, but the offensive line puts him in a position that does he have time to get the ball downfield in any kind of capacity. And then to make matters worse is that, because of the offensive line, the hits and everything, he's getting more injuries. So he's got the one sore pec, and he's got now the hip injury, and it's just like, to me, my way of thinking, it's all falling apart.
Oof.
John, one of the things that's interesting about the line is I think a lot of people here, myself included, would have agreed with that through 3 games, but like one of the maybe unintended consequences or side consequences of that is I think they did a decent job. There were some stats.
Tomlin praised the line after the Packers game.
I'll just lay out the stats. So I guess ESPN Stats and Info dug this up. He threw the ball 40 times in that game against the Packers. They only charted 7% of the time he got pressured on those 40 dropbacks, and that was the lowest, I want to say, by a quarterback with 40 attempts in a loss in almost a decade. So it seems now like you're getting the double whammy of either they're not protecting him or he's assuming he's not going to be protected, and when he's in a clean pocket, he's still getting rid of the ball quickly. Is that kind of that skittishness a real thing even with veteran players?
I would think so, yeah. I mean, you certainly see it with other quarterbacks in the league. You get rid of the ball quickly, in a lot of ways because you're going to get hit or it's going to be very difficult. And because of that, you end up throwing shorter. So I don't think it's more scheme. I mean, it was certainly scheme, I think, last year because the scheme was so bad. But, in part it has to be a little bit of the scheme. But also I think in part it has to be because the offensive line.
How do you work around that offensive line, John? I mean, what do? You hope that a Stephon Gilmore type on the offensive line just gets randomly cut by a team and you're able to pick him up? I mean, what do you do?
I mean, you hope so. I mean, because it's got to be, it's like it's been tried to be rebuilt, but it hasn't been rebuilt in the right way. I mean, from what you see, do you like what you see of the offensive line?
No, I don't. I mean, I'll be very honest with you.
Either.
I think the line is probably one of the 5 worst and possibly the very worst in the entire NFL. But I do agree with what Chris said. I think it was better against the Packers. They didn't commit to it and didn't do it enough, but they actually ran the ball decently against the Packers on Sunday when they decided to try it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when you look at the offensive line, you've got again, it's not the worst. Chicago's the worst.
You think? Okay.
When you look at their tackle situation with 85-year-old Jason Peters and Elijah Wilkinson at right tackle and 2 very average to below average.
But Fields
they have a guy that can
Fields
actually
can
move around.
get out of harm's way. That's.
Well, is he?
Well, he's more mobile than Ben. I mean, even Tomlin said.
Well, yeah, so. I mean, but he's like he still gets sacked a lot. He holds on to the ball for 2.95 seconds. I mean, that's the way he was in college. And so, and again, when you go to the Green Bay Packers, say what you want. I know their defense ranks reasonably well as far as yards allowed, but they're not very good.
Yeah.
Well, that was definitely an alarming part of it. The other thing in Jerry's story was, among other things, hamstrung by the system, not allowed to audible specifically, at all times. And seemingly the article, John, blames that inability or lack of permission, I guess, for Ben to audible at the line of scrimmage for some of these just atrocious 4th down plays they've run this season. Is that a thing you've heard happens a lot to other veteran quarterbacks when there might be a regime change, that their freedom to maneuver things as they see fit at the line of scrimmage is taken from them?
Not for a quarterback that's been in the league this long and has been as good as Ben Roethlisberger.
Did it happen with Rodgers and LaFleur in Green Bay in their first year together? Do you remember hearing?
Yeah, in their first year. and then they gave him the ability to audible because, again, if you're Aaron Rodgers, you don't care. It's like if they don't give you the ability to audible, you're just going to make a change at the line if you think it anyways. That's just Aaron Rodgers. But, I mean, you go back, and that was one of the mistakes I think Todd Haley made, is that he didn't give Ben the ability to audible, and certainly he didn't give Ben the ability to run the ball at the goal line. Because remember how he would never be able to take the run at the goal line.
Yeah, he never quarterback sneaked, and he really hasn't even without Todd Haley. It's still not even part of their offense. Well, it just seems like the Steelers are really stuck between a rock and a hard place, John, because you've come on the air with us and said countless times, if you bench Ben, you're waving the white flag and throwing in the towel on the season. But it also sounds like you think he's probably not going to play much better this year behind such a bad offensive line.
It could be, yeah. I mean, it just could be a bad season. I think that's starting to be one of the inevitabilities that you're looking at. Because, again, it's like, are you confident enough that Randolph can do well? Are you confident enough that Dwayne Haskins to do well? It's just a matter, you're right, they're caught between a rock and a hard place, and it's not going very well whatsoever.
Is it, if you were kind of running the team at that point, John, say it gets to a place where the record seems pretty obviously unsalvageable, maybe halfway through the season it gets real bad, 2-7, something like that. Mm-hmm. If you were running the show at that point, would you pull the plug on Roethlisberger merely in service of seeing what Rudolph could do the rest of the year so you weren't burning next year too, wondering about that?
No, you already know what Rudolph can do. It's not good enough. I mean, you already know those answers.
What about Haskins then?
What's that?
What about Haskins? If you don't know, if you know Rudolph,
Haskins.
What about Haskins?
Yeah, you might do it for Haskins because at least he's a former first-round pick. But I think what you're looking at is that you want, if you do something to go 2-7, it's like go ahead, pull Ben because this obviously will be Ben's last year the way things are going, and it's not like there was anything they could do to fix up this year. Nothing. I mean, again, next year maybe they can make a trade to get Aaron Rodgers. We'll see what they can do next year, but this year they're kind of trapped. They needed to try to do 1 year with Ben. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And the more losses they get, the higher they have a chance to maybe get a young quarterback or a better draft position to get a veteran quarterback.
Talking to John Clayton here. He's brought to you by Salem's Market and Grill on Penn Avenue in the Strip. Well, the Aaron Rodgers thing has been talked about so much here, John, in the last few days because Tomlin keeps talking about Rodgers. Rodgers keeps talking about Tomlin and the Steelers, and then they had that Lady and the Tramp scene together where they were making eyes with each other during the game on Sunday. I don't know if you caught that, but they were smiling and winking at each other, and it just seemed like they were almost in cahoots, the two of them, Tomlin and Rodgers. It just seems like Aaron Rodgers so calculated, so smart. It's like he's trying to send messages and send signals to everyone here that he would potentially consider playing for the Steelers, John.
No question. I mean, you can see it. That's Aaron because Aaron wants out of Green Bay. I mean, sure, he can maybe go to Denver. There's a couple other teams, maybe New Orleans, but I think Pittsburgh can be an option.
But it's just so weird to see somebody do it in season, where he's playing for another
open
team,
tampering,
and they're really good, and he's still sending little love letters to us, letting us know that he's available and on the market.
They're good this year, but now you can see. If he goes, they're going to have to go into a rebuilding mode. They're not going to be good next year. Devontae Adams is probably going to go to a different team. Will David Bakhtiari, once he gets back on the field, will he be able to return? I mean, you look at that offensive line, and they've almost had to redo the offensive line, and the defense, talent-wise, keeps getting worse.
John, we have obviously explored this because it's sports talk radio, and fans want to hear conversations like this because they see the writing on the wall with Ben. Even though he's done so much winning here, they know he probably won't be back next year at this rate. And they want a great quarterback instead of a coin flip and a rookie quarterback. But, if you traded for Aaron Rodgers, what type of player do you think you'd have to send to Green Bay? Draft picks, of course, but do you think there are players on this roster Green Bay might want back?
Hard to tell. I think more than anything else, there'll be more draft picks than anything. Obviously, it's going to be a first. I don't know if it's going to be 2 firsts, but it's going to be more draft picks than players.
So you don't think they'd
because-
say, like, give us Chase Claypool or give us Minka Fitzpatrick or give us Devin Bush or somebody
Why would they
along
want
those
Devin
lines?
Bush?
I don't know. I'm just naming
Yeah,
high-profile, big-name guys.
It would be more of a defensive player than it's going to be an offensive player.
Like Alex
But,
Highsmith, somebody like that, young pass rusher maybe.
Yeah. So it's like that could be an option, but it's not going to be Claypool. So in the end, I think it comes down to it's going to be because they need help on defense because it's just that situation just continues to get worse.
John, how good would Aaron Rodgers make the Steelers next year? We know what you think about this offensive line, what we think about it too. How good could they be with that guy calling the shots?
Well, it depends on what they do in restructuring his contract to make sure there's cap room, and then secondly, how they can rebuild the offensive line because see what they can do with Juju Smith-Schuster and see what they can do with but the offensive line is going to be obviously the key. Their defense is going to be good, but their offense right now is the big question. The running game should be good with Najee Harris, but the running game is still going to be up and down with the offensive line.
Does a guy like Rodgers say, I know we're pulling at hypothetical strings here, John, but a guy like Rodgers, say the trade gets made and the teams agree on terms, all the contract stuff, they can work it out. If he came here and said, I don't want to play in Matt Canada's system, though, I want a different, so-and-so to be the coordinator, is that the kind of shot you would let Aaron Rodgers call if you were the Steelers?
Yeah, if he has a suggestion who to come in as a new offensive coordinator, but I think you leave that door open.
Yeah.
Because you want if you're going to trade for Aaron Rodgers, you want to make him happy. In Green Bay, one of the reasons he's leaving is he's not happy with management. And of course, if you're going to be Steeler management, you want to make him happy.
Well, that's another message he sent to the Steelers. Look, I'm actually not a bad GM. This wide receiver I keep throwing the ball to for touchdowns, he's the only reason, or I'm the only reason why he's back in Green Bay. Randall Cobb killed the Steelers on Sunday, John. And the only reason why he's back in Green Bay is because of who?
Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's similar, I think, in a lot of ways with what happened with Russell Wilson. Because Russell wanted a voice in what they did in offensive coordinator and a voice in what they did on offense. And if you're any team that picks up Aaron Rodgers, you want Aaron Rodgers to have a voice.
Now, what the heck is going on here with Jacksonville? So Urban Meyer, this whole deal there where he goes into his own bar and someone shoots a video of him, shows him with this lady, with this girl, and now what, John? Is he going to get fired? Is he going to make it through the season? What do you think?
He's not going to get fired this week, but at some point he's probably going to get fired. Now, what you wonder is that when they had their conversations early in the week, did they tell him you violated the moral clauses of your contract and we can get out of the guarantees of your contract? Because one of the reasons that he could stay is I think he's making like $9 million a year, and all these coaches' contracts are guaranteed. But again, he's a disaster. I mean, one of the worst hires we've seen in many, many years. I mean, the players don't respect him. He continues to make mistakes. He doesn't coach well. It's just brutal.
How do you make a mistake that big, John? Because outside of like Shad Khan himself, the guy who made the deal to bring him on, I don't know of many people who actually thought this was going to work. Like maybe if you were polling 10, NFL analysts or insiders, maybe one of them would have said Urban Meyer could make it work. How does somebody screw up something that seems this obviously destined to fail?
I mean, you make mistakes. I mean, yeah, that's one of the problems of hiring a pure college coach. I mean, what are the Niners so hired since 2000? The only one that's had a winning record has been Chip Kelly, and I wouldn't say he's been successful because what ends up happening, you hire a college coach, you give him too much power in personnel. I mean, he could come in too strong for the players because he's used to dealing with teenagers, not veterans, not adults. And so it's like, it's predictable that this was going to be a mistake, but not this bad.
John, what did you make of what happened with the Broncos and Ravens at the end of the game on Sunday?
I support Vic Fangio. I
Same.
thought the idea that John Harbaugh, trying to run an extra play to get, some kind of a record was cheap. I mean, take the knee. And so, again, it's not a matter of risking injury. It's a matter of being respectful. He wasn't respectful.
John, who do you think is the best team right now in the AFC North through 4 weeks? I know where the Steelers would rank for you.
It's Buffalo.
No, AFC North. I'm sorry, AFC North.
AFC North. It's Baltimore. I mean, again, because somehow they've been able to survive all those injuries. Cincinnati's done a nice job. I mean, you could make the argument it could be Cleveland. I mean, because it's either Cleveland or Baltimore. Probably you'd lean toward Cleveland.
I'm worried about everyone says I'm the big Cleveland honk on this show, and what have you, John. I am concerned if their defense looks like they have actually rebuilt it. If I'm a Browns fan, I am pretty concerned that Mayfield still cannot get on a serious roll where he looks like the best player on that offense.
Well, I mean, again, he may just be average. And if that's going to be the case, I mean, you judge that as far as a contract extension. But, he has to have good surrounding talent to make it work. And, he's got good surrounding talent, particularly in the backfield. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr.'s there, but Jarvis Landry isn't. I mean, he's got a very good offensive line. But, I mean, he just might be just average.
John, what do you think happens for Juju Smith-Schuster this time around in free agency if the numbers stay where they are right now, which is to say not very good?
I mean, he might go someplace else. Then you're in a position to see what you have left in the draft after, if you can make a Rodgers trade and do something. But at this stage, it's going to be hard to pay him, $15 to $18 million a year.
But do you think he's going to be able to demand that based on his production so
Maybe
far
not.
this year?
No, I question it.
Yeah.
Seems like he made a pretty big mistake. If those offers were legitimate from the Chiefs
Well,
and
the
the
Kansas
Ravens,
City's the one I would scratch my head
I mean,
about.
that just seems strange to me that he wouldn't have
Well, the
pulled
Chiefs
the
weren't
cord
going to
there.
pay him like Tyreek Hill. I mean, that's not that.
Even on a prove-it deal, though.
I think it was $9 million, and then if he caught, if he hit certain performance bonuses, he would have made around 12, which even the base salary I think was a little bit more than what the Steelers were offering. But he was comfortable here and familiar with Ben and everything else. But as you pointed out, the offensive line has been such a disaster that they haven't really given anybody a chance. So, All right, John. Great to talk to you, buddy. We'll do it again next Wednesday, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
There you go. John Clayton. Yes?
I feel like we should have asked him one or two more very Broncos-specific questions because I know that he does a lot of work out in Denver with a radio station out there covering that team. So he could have given us the real skinny, the real scoop.
On the Broncos.
Yeah.
Well, how about next week when we have the Seahawks in town?
Oh, isn't that obvious?
That's another easy one.
Isn't that obvious? Better chance the Steelers bench Roethlisberger if they lose to the – well, no.
Here's a good –
Forget it. I'm not even going to go down that road.
Did you give the stat to him that with a clean pocket this year, Ben is 30th in QBR?
I didn't give him that one, but I knew that it was
that's
bad. That's
just
brutal.
That one –
That's brutal, man.
That for any Ben apologist, you can be see, there are Ben lovers, then there are Ben apologists. A Ben lover is somebody like Craig and me. Appreciate what he did for 18 years, the good times he provided, the championships he brought here. Ben apologist is you not only take that, but you apply all of that to illogical heights, where when the guy is clearly struggling and not playing well, you're so clouded and you're so screwed up from what he's done in the past that you are incapable of seeing what's happening before your very eyes. That is the Ben apologist.
If there's Ben lovers and Ben apologists, what am I?
They call them trolls or whatever, people that just sit behind a computer in their mom's basement.
I just think you're not a fan. That's all. Which you're allowed to. That's okay.
You know what I find? You don't have to be a fan.
I'm
not. You know what I got to get off my chest though about the Dulac piece about him being hamstrung by the Canada offense. It's sort of like what John Clayton said about Aaron Rodgers. Yes, in LaFleur's system, to a degree, he didn't have the audible capability, but then screw it. He's Aaron Rodgers. He's just going to go do it anyway.
Yep.
Just so much of what Jerry wrote in that story seems to be trying to pass off blame to others for things that are very clearly Ben's fault.
You could easily write a story the next day with the title, "Is Ben Roethlisberger hamstringing the Matt Canada offense?"
Right.
With
Well,
I
think he is
motions and shifts and
but they're not even
rollouts
running,
and stuff.
That's been my contention. They're not even running Canada's offense because it has tons of pre-snap motion and more quarterback movement.
Text us on the Edgar Snyder and Associates fan text on Edgar Snyder reminds you to text responsibly. Ben Roethlisberger with Jeff Hathorn and more coming up. Ben, in this interview, you will hear how much he hates ESPN. Exactly.
What are you doing there, Craig? You might share that with the class?
Thank you. I don't think they use that sound effect anymore, which is really a shame.
Oh,
they should go back to it. Don't modernize it.
Why can't they be like more corny? Man, even ESPN from like 2010 feels like you're watching something that's 40 years old.
Keeping up with the flood of news every single day can be quite stressful. There is climate change happening. There's the pandemic, labor movements, Nicki Minaj's cousin's friend. Hi, I am Gideon Resnick, host of Crooked Media's What a Day. Each week, Travelle Anderson, Priyanka Arabindi, Josie Duffy Rice, and I are going to break down the biggest news stories of the day in a way that hopefully doesn't always make you want to cry. New episodes of What a Day drop every weekday at 5 a.m. Eastern. Listen on Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.